Welcome back to Generation AI. Researchers estimate at least 5 million young adults in the U.S. have turned to an AI chatbot for mental health advice. In a survey, the vast majority of them said it was useful. But what happens when that AI support starts replacing real therapy or even real relationships? My next guest today is Jaime Vinck, president of Meadows Behavioral Healthcare. Jaime, welcome to Generation AI.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming in. So many people are turning to AI these days, and it seems an increasing number of them are sort of using it as a kind of therapy almost. What is it about these algorithms that feels so satisfying to use?
So first of all, I'm a big proponent of AI. And I don't want anything I say to be construed as I don't believe in it or I'm not a fan of it, but it has its purpose and it cannot replace the human relationship. A lot of folks, especially our younger adults, the ones that we would consider digital natives, they have had technology their entire lives.
Sure.
And they are more comfortable, or often their go-to is their screen rather than another human. And so the fact that they can go to this app and get advice is very comfortable for them. So that's really the why, is it the go-to? The second component, and where it becomes dangerous, is that these bots are designed to keep you coming back for more. And the way that it works is that it's really an echo chamber of what you've already put into the app. Your emotions, your preferences, things that you enjoy. And so the responses are going to be synthesized through that information and provide you with an answer that you really like.
Right, they're tuning the responses for
correct.
Engagement. They want you to be engaged, and so these things can sometimes be sycophantic and sort of agree with everything you've said. There's some interesting research that's come out recently on this, and we have that graphic. But there was one study in JAMA that found that 13% of U.S. adolescents 12 to 21 had used generative AI for mental health advice. The vast majority of them had found it helpful. So what should families take away from that? I mean, is the helpful feeling enough, or do you have any concern?
I have a healthy fear around this, because I can tell you that as a clinician practicing for many years, if you came into my office and we talked about something that was going on in your world, I would assist you in setting a boundary. I would tell you if you were looking, if there was a way to look at something differently. And I would also share my emotions and my lived experience and my training. An AI, a bot, has none of those tools.
So I think what you're saying is there's a difference between sort of feeling understood versus actually being understood, and maybe having a degree of healthy pushback too.
That's correct. We call it carefrontation. Caring enough about you to confront you on unhelpful thought patterns.
There's also this idea of maybe using AI chatbots as therapists could have some short-term feelings of benefit, but some long-term consequences. And there was a new study that just came out. It's actually a preprint. It's so new. It's from researchers at Oxford and Stanford, but they found that after just one conversation with a sycophantic AI, people expected it would take more effort to feel understood by their close human family and friends. They felt like they had already talked through the problem. They also, after 3 weeks, reported lower satisfaction with real-world social interactions. That, to me, sounds concerning.
Terrifying, because none of these things are meant to be in place of a human relationship. And what I have seen, and certainly what I have learned, is that people's worlds keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And when someone is constantly validated by a bot, then being in the real world and getting honest to goodness feedback becomes more scary.
Yeah, when I see that there's an effect like that on, real world satisfaction after just 3 weeks, my mind as a layperson thinks, it's almost like the dopamine hit that you get after using drugs, where it's like your brain chemistry changes. I don't know, would you agree at all with that characterization, or would you push back on that idea?
I would. There is definitely a dopamine component to AI, as well as gaming and shopping and all kinds of things where we get that dopamine rush. And that's also by design. And so when someone becomes addicted to that dopamine hit and always being reinforced, it can even lead to something that we're calling now AI psychosis.
Where's the line? Where is the line between a healthy use of AI and unhealthy dependence on this?
When it is your exclusive social life, when it becomes your exclusive source of reference, when it becomes your exclusive relationship. You know, I read about on New Year's Eve, there was a restaurant in Manhattan where they actually had special sections where people went for New Year's Eve dinner with their bots.
Wow.
And so that's too far.
Yes. For the parents out there that are watching this, I think there are a lot of attentive parents who want their kids to be AI literate.
Yes.
Who want their kids to use the technology, be comfortable with it because they know it's sort of the future of the economy.
Yes.
How do you balance that though? What are the conversations that families should be having?
I believe that limiting or encouraging the limitation on hours spent on the screen in general, and then really understanding what they're using the AI tool for, and then encouraging other healthy human relationships where real emotions can be exchanged and real empathy can be developed.
Yeah, and I think I've heard of this term called the loneliness loop.
Yes.
Where, you know, the more shut off you become, the more reliant you become on the AI, the more shut off you become and the more reliant you become on the AI. I mean, that's got to be a concern.
Yes, and we find a lot of our young adults have not had the opportunity to develop social skills. And so this dependence, it's certainly understandable.
There has been some research at Brown University where they looked at chatbots and they found that they can sometimes break mental health ethics standards even when they're instructed to act like therapists. What do you take away from that? I mean, what are the most important ethical things that a human therapist can do that maybe an AI chatbot cannot right now?
Well, I would say first and foremost is maintain the confidentiality of your data.
Oh, sure.
If you think that through, and if you're talking to a bot, you have no idea where that information is going, and it's your most sacred personal details, and you're putting it out there. And so every state is approaching it a bit differently in terms of the guardrails, if you will, around legislation to keep our patient data safe. So that is first and foremost, that a clinician will safeguard your data.
Yeah.
The second is what I talked about before, real empathy, where you and I will co-regulate. Our nervous systems will begin to breathe in unison. Our eyes will meet, and you will feel legitimate emotional caring. There's no bot that can do that as far as I know. And then that lived experience.
Yeah. AI chatbots cannot draw upon their lived experience for sure. Jaime Vinck is the president of Meadows Behavioral Healthcare. Jaime, thank you so much for being on Generation AI.